Okay, so on today's video, I'm going to be talking about the AFC and NFC teams that are in the playoffs. First, I'll start off with the 6 AFC teams. First, the Dolphins. What is their chance of winning playoff games? So right now, the running game has been real good with G.I. and their quarterback, Matt Moore, has been doing real good. He's been finding his opportunities to Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, and they've just been moving the ball, and that's what they need. They need momentum in the playoffs because they're not used to being played in the playoffs before. So they need to be ready and get moving because they're going to face some of the best teams in the AFC. They could reach New England, but that means they'd have to win a couple games. But for this team to go to the Super Bowl, chances are pretty low, but I think this team could have a shot at the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs, if they do play them in the wild card, I don't think they could be able to do that. But that's my thing on the Dolphins. Now, I'll talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. What are their odds? So right now, Chiefs look real good. They've got some big targets like Tyreek Hill, Jeremy Maclin, and Travis Kelce. And they have a shot at the AFC Championship, I believe. But you can never tell, though. There have been some upsets in the playoffs before. But this team has looked real good. Their defense has been strong. They have Eric Berry, Marcus Peters, big defensive backs. And they can use those as big weapons, too. And their defensive line has been outstanding. Derek Johnson, though, the loss of him for a couple games has hurt them. But they've been staying alive. Spencer Hill has been doing a great job at running, keeping their game alive on rushing with the loss of Jamal Charles for the rest of the year. So that's my take on the Chiefs. Then, the Raiders. What are their odds? Right now, they've lost pretty much the MVP, Derek Carr, which was very hard. He broke his fibula. And they've got to get moving. They've got to worry about the future right now. What are they going to have to do without Derek Carr? Which is hard, though, because they've had him all the rest of the season. He had a minor sprain on his finger, and that didn't help. He didn't play great against the Chiefs on that game. That's why they pretty much lost. But this team, they still have some of the best receivers with Michael Crabtree, Amari Cooper, and Seth Roberts. They're just great. Their defense has been strong all year. Reggie Nelson has had some game-changing picks, saves, and their defense has just played outstanding with some big defensive backs like Sean Smith that they picked up this year. And their offensive line, too, has been really good with Donald Penn, Rodney Hudson, and they're just really good. And they've got to keep their strength even without Derek Carr and keep moving. And I think they still have a shot at winning some playoff games. Now, I'm going to talk about the New England Patriots. What are their chances? So New England, of course, right now are the greatest team in the NFL. Even though without the great Rob Gronkowski, they have just been powerful with Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, in some tough situations, and they came back and sometimes just blew out other teams. But they've just been on the move. They destroyed the Jets, and they, I think, have a good shot at the Super Bowl. I think they'll definitely go to the AFC Championship, and I believe they will go to the Super Bowl and possibly even win the Super Bowl, even though they don't have the great tight end, Rob Gronkowski. Their chances are very high, and I believe in that because their team has been great from when they were made to now, and I think they're going to be very good with Tom Brady. Now I'm going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Steelers this year have been stuck in a couple tight corners and possibly even losing the playoffs. But they've held together, and now they are putting themselves in the playoffs. They clinched the AFC North with a big comeback win against Baltimore. It looked like it was over, but with 1 minute left, they came back and scored a touchdown to put the game away. And Big Ben, he's doing a great job. He can deep ball with Antonio Brown, and their defense has been real good too. They've had James Harrison, and he can crush right through your line. Even though they lost the big Troy Polamalu and Brett Kiesel, they still have Ryan Shazier and some great other defensive players. I don't think they'll go very far in the playoffs, but I think they announced themselves for next year. Then the last team for the AFC, the Texans, wanted to come back against the Bengals. They were losing 10-6, came back with a touchdown. Even though with the blocked extra point, they still held on with the Bullock miss, and they clinched it. Even without J.J. Watt, they still look like the great defense that they had before with Jadavion Clowney and Cushing and some great linebackers and stuff that they have. And that they will put the pressure on you. But Tom Savage, he's got to, for him to keep the job against Brock Osweiler, he has to keep playing like he has 2-0 with the last times he's played. So he can be a deep weapon with DeAndre Hopkins, and I think they're ready. I don't think they're gonna go very far like Pittsburgh, but I think they'll announce themselves for next year. Now, I'm going to be talking about the NFC teams, starting off with the New York Giants. New York Giants with a big loss against Philadelphia. Can the Giants do it with more wins? I don't know. That's questionable because right now they could be kicked out of the not kicked out of the playoffs, but they could be bumped back. But this team has to be ready. Eli Manning's got to stop the interceptions. He's been throwing them a lot this year, and he's got to be ready to get some under pressure throws deep to OBJ, and if he can do that and complete them, I think they have a good shot. But how far they're going to get, I don't know. I don't think they'll go far, but of course they could get far. But I don't think they'll last very long. But that's my take on the Giants. Now, I'm going to talk about the Packers. What are their odds? They started the season 4-6. 4-6. It looked like their playoff was out. They are still questionable to be knocked out if they lose to the Lions this coming Sunday night game. They have to be ready. They've won their last 5. They look like the old Green Bay they used to be. They've been hitting Jordy Nelson, even though he was out for the start of the season. They've got to be ready. Hitting Devontae Adams. Randall Cobb was out the last game. They still pulled together with a big victory. I think this team is ready. I think they're ready for this playoffs, but with Eddie Lacy and stuff, I don't know how good their run game's going to be. Their defense could be a little bit better. They haven't been playing great. A couple slips that made big plays happen against the Vikings. But Clay Matthews, if he could turn this game around in the playoffs, this team around, they could be a threat in the playoffs. I think they could go a little bit deeper in the playoffs. Now I'll talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, so Seattle with a big loss to Arizona. Right now they're 9-5-1. Yes, they're probably going to clinch the NFC West. I think they already have, and they've got to stick together and not make big mistakes like they did, like with Hoshka missing the extra point that could have probably put the game away. And they've just got to be ready because they've just made a couple of mistakes that they shouldn't have made before, and they've got to hit. Russell Wilson has to be ready for deep balls to Jermaine Kearse and stuff like that. The receivers have to get open. They got a nice running game with Thomas Rawls, but I think this team, it could still be a little bit early for a deep playoffs. Now, I'll be talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott are great guys. Ezekiel Elliott has just turned the game around. He's just been great. Dak Prescott, he's had some bad mistakes, but that's okay because he's still a great player and he can do it all. But he's got great line. They've got great defense. Hopefully, DeMarcus Lawrence will return for them when they reach the postseason, and I think they could be the biggest threat in the NFC. I think they could reach the Super Bowl. So that's my take on the Cowboys. Then the Lions. This team has just turned the NFC North around. They have just been winning. They've won their last 8 of 9 games. That is incredible for the Detroit Lions. Matthew Stafford has been hitting Golden Tate very well. Eric Ebron has been doing very well. Amir Abdullah has been finding some holes and getting some great runs. And their defense is just powerful. That good defensive line. They've got some good defensive backs. This team, I think, could be Green Bay this coming week. But also, I think they could go down in the NFC playoffs with some big wins. So I think Detroit will be pretty good in the postseason. Then, Falcons, my final team for the NFC. They are just amazing. Matt Ryan and stuff, they've just been on fire. He's just been hitting deep balls. Coleman's just been running big runs. Their defense has been stopping the other opponent's offense, and they've just really been stalling a lot of teams. I think this team could find a way to sneak maybe into the NFC Championship against Dallas. They're a great team. Their defense needs to improve a little bit, but this offense is sure looking good. Matt Ryan is very good. He could hit some deep balls, but I think this Atlanta team could go to the NFC Championship. So that's my take on Atlanta. Thank you for watching Hot Raider Block. I'll see you next week.